The following program is to provide entertainment and information. It is not considered to be any legal or investment advice. Good morning, appraisers. Let's talk some real estate. You're listening to the Voice of Appraisal, the #1 appraisal podcast in America that brings you the latest news and information from the front lines of the real estate market. Anything from market conditions, appraisal regulations, cryptocurrencies, big bank news. Folks, you have a question, we have all of your answers. We are the one-stop source for all of your real estate appraisal information needs. If you want to be in the know, you have definitely tuned in to the right show. I'm your host, Phil Crawford. Happy to have all of you here with us today. Kevin, a big day today, Kevin. A big day. What day is it today, Kevin?
Today is
Veterans Day, my friend. Veterans Day, and we want to give a big thank you, a special shout-out to all the veterans out there for your service, for keeping us safe for so many years, for all the men and women who are actively serving in the military today. We thank you very much today. And also we want to say a special thank you to our American veterans, American appraisers. American veterans, American appraisers. There are so many veterans in the appraisal profession. There really are, and we need more of them. We need more veterans in the appraisal profession because the appraisal profession requires those people that know what it's like to have honor and dignity and ethics, and we need that more than ever in this appraisal profession because it's going crazy out there. That's all I got to say. Kevin, what do you say today, buddy?
Actually, I was going to say before we get into the weeds here.
Gotcha.
Wanted to mention real quick out there, the holidays are coming up.
Yes.
I believe we do have some people that are waiting in the wings for the cancer support fund.
We do. We have 3 people that are waiting in the wings for some support for the Real Estate Appraiser Cancer Support Fund, and it's my fault. I have not been talking about it very much in the last couple of shows. I haven't brought it up very much, and I need to. So if anybody out there is interested in donating to the Real Estate Appraisers Cancer Support Fund, you go to www.voiceofappraisal.com, click on the 2 lawn chairs on the beach, click on that, and you can give your donation there. It's a 501c3. It was set up by myself a few years ago, and there are some people that would like to have some help, especially coming up for the holidays. So if you'd like to donate, please go there and donate to the Real Estate Appraisers Cancer Support Fund. Thank you very much, Kevin, for bringing that up. I really do appreciate it. Wow. Lots of news, lots of information. That last show that we did brought up a lot of emails this last week about this anchoring. It's all about the anchoring, man. It's anchoring.
So busy, we had to do 2 shows this week.
We did 2 shows. Today's show is going to go over this anchoring thing and the data sets that they're using. And then Wednesday's show, we're going to have John Russell from the American Society of Appraisers. He's going to join us about some new news with the ASA and everything that he does in D.C. So lots of positive things going on in the appraisal profession. First of all, let's talk about this anchoring issue. Mark Fleming, First American Real Estate, we discussed and we talked about some of his comments at the American Enterprise Institute last week about the anchoring that he sees. He made the claim that 99% of the time the appraiser comes in at the contract price. Now, we've also heard from the NAR in some of their recent surveys that the contract price usually comes in about 90% of the time. So 10% of the time, there's a big difference there. Kevin, I don't know. When I look at that, I've got to thinking about it. I've got the emails from some of our listeners. I got to thinking about it throughout the last week. I'm not too sure on this 99% thing, number one, because I just think this data set may not be accurate because I have too many questions about it. Mark is a very nice guy. If he wants to come on the show, he can come on whenever he wants to. I have a great conversation about it. But the one thing I want to say is when it comes to 99% anchoring, what price range are we looking at? That's a big issue. I mean, I don't like to bring up price range. I like to look mostly at the attributes of a property. But what price range are we looking at? Are we looking at $100,000 to $200,000? We're looking at $300,000 to $400,000. Where does this anchoring take place? Okay, and what we're talking about when it comes to this is that the way that Mark and some people are looking at this anchoring is through the lenses that because the sales prices are anchored and hit so many times, why order the appraisal? That's the picture that's being given by some people out there today in the lending world. If it's hit 99% of the time, then why do we order the appraisal? That's the picture, Kevin.
Right.
That's the picture. But that's the first shot. I'm different, okay? I don't look at the photograph. The photograph is one thing. The photograph will tell you something. Mm-hmm. I look at the negative of the photograph to look at the opposite situation and say, well, what is it telling you about the market? If appraisers are out there to derive the most probable selling price in an open market where all buyers and sellers are knowledgeable and there is no duress, then most likely in those transactions, the sales price or the contract price will equal the market value of the home. So instead of saying that the appraisers are hitting it 99% of the time, I think some people ought to be looking at it and saying, well, I think we've got a market that is hitting its equilibrium and that buyers and sellers are coming together at a proper meeting of the minds.
Okay.
I look at this anchoring set that was put out there last week, and I just look at it. There's just too many questions. There's too many questions about that statement, a 99% anchoring, that we do have to answer. Let's say, for instance, I've got $100,000 to $200,000 homes. 99% of the time, the appraiser is hitting this. 99% of the time, the market value is anchored to the contract price. What's that telling me? That's telling me that I've got an undersupplied market most of the time. Or it's telling me something else. I may have a level of duress inside of that market that I need to look at. See, duress happens in two different directions, Kevin. A duressed situation in a sales price can happen when you're losing a home, when there's too many foreclosures, when you're getting a divorce, when somebody has died. There's duress in that transaction. There also can be duress when the demand is so hot and the supply is so low that their duress will cause multiple offers and therefore prices to meet market value. That's the lens that some of these economists aren't looking at correctly, in my personal opinion. So, for instance, if you're showing sales price anchoring at 90% in 2013, 91% in 2014, all the way up to 99% in 2019, it could show you that demand is high, supply is low, and we need housing, and therefore the natural reaction would equal the market value being very close to that contract price. What we've got now throughout a great majority of these markets throughout the country, especially in price points, the price points of $100,000, $200,000, $250,000, you get in those price points right now, this is a scenario that you're working in. Imagine yourself at Paul Brown Stadium, where the Cincinnati Bengals play. Paul Brown Stadium on a Sunday, 1 o'clock, the Pittsburgh Steelers are in town. And the score is, what is the score, Kevin? 63-3, okay? Steelers, by the way. And all of a sudden, you got Mike Brown, who's Paul Brown's kid, who owns the Cincinnati Bengals. He's up in the owner's box right now. It's 63-3. He's looking up in the sky at his dad going, "Daddy, I can't do it as good as you did. What am I doing wrong here?" And then he realizes that he's not making any money. So what does Mike Brown do? Mike Brown says, you know what? We're not serving hot dogs in the second quarter or the third quarter or the fourth quarter of this game because I need to save some money. So no hot dogs in Paul Brown Stadium on a Sunday when we're getting our ass kicked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. No hot dogs, Kevin. So what happens? The second quarter begins. People have had their beer. They've been out drinking all day long. And the hot dog vendor comes in, and he's only got one cart. He's got 20 hot dogs. And the stadium is 0.25% filled with people because they're all hungry. And most of them are gone because it's 63-3 and the Bengals suck really bad. Yeah. And they're like, but I still need my hot dog. I'm hungry. So all of a sudden, the cost of the hot dog goes from $5 a hot dog to maybe $25. There's multiple offers on the hot dog. And the reason why is because there is a level of duress. Throughout this entire country, some of these markets that we're in is Paul Brown Stadium on a Sunday afternoon getting your ass beat by the Steelers. And there's no hot dogs. And people are going to pay for that. What the information that came out of American Enterprise is, if Mark looks at this correctly, he actually has a sales price anchoring index that he can pull upon as time goes on. So if you look at the negative, the inverse of the data, not the yin, but the yang, there could be an indication that you have a market that's in duress because of sales price anchoring. I don't even want to use the anchoring. I want to use the word verification. That sales price verification is taking place more and more. In my personal opinion, that's how I would look at this entire scenario.
So basically, Phil, like you're saying in the Bengals scenario,
yes,
I like that because that makes sense. You've only got 20 hot dogs.
Yes.
You got one hot dog. You got a guy over here who says, I'll give you the $5 asking price for it. Another guy's like, $5, I'll give you $20 for it.
Exactly. And it becomes a situation where the financial position, a.k.a. the home ownership, becomes very important to that individual. In my personal opinion, if you're going to be looking at this sales price bias or this sales price anchoring, I would look at it as a certain index to say, okay, now is there duress or is there undersupply taking place in a certain market? And for that data to be used in that way, that data has got to be accurate and it has to be pure, which means it can't filter through an AMC, or a third party who's being pressured by the bank to make sure that their appraisers hit that number. See, that's the whole key to it right there. I've thought about this. I've slept on this. I've rethought it again. I want to know sales price ranges, number one. Number two, if you're showing 99% anchoring, Kevin, is the data you're getting accurate? Is it coming from an AMC where they have a 7-page aggressive value dispute form? Is it coming from that source, or is it coming from a GSE when they can see it upon first submission? So to make that statement, to say we're showing this anchoring, I don't know if the data is actually as pure as it needs to be to say that we need to go down the path of some sort of appraisal waiver program, okay? Which, by the way, we have heard from credible sources that the appraisal waiver program is shelved. It's on its way out. That quote-unquote modernization, that pilot program is not happening. We have also heard from sources that certain bifurcated products are going to be on their way out as well because they're part of a pilot. But I've gotten from some excellent sources that PIW, that pissing in the wind, that appraisal waiver is on its way out. But my situation with Mark is that I think he's onto something. I think he's got a good indicator here, but he's got to look at the negative side of the picture. What's it telling you? It tells you that there is some duress in those marketplaces.
How can it be 99% anchoring
Yes.
if 50% of that is bad data?
Okay, now that's a very good point. You just hit it right there. Okay, so how do we solve for that issue? If I'm showing 99% anchoring to sales price, how do I solve for and you said 50%. Let's just throw it out there at let's just say 15% is bad data. What I think would solve this issue, Kevin, is if we went to the source. Okay, so let's say that Mark or some other people out there are showing anchoring, and they're getting it from an AMC. So then you would take how many value disputes that AMC does in a given month. Okay, so if 15% of the deals that came in for purchase transactions were quote-unquote value disputed, then look at the ratio of how many adjusted the sales price. That's the big thing. And also look at the value dispute form. Then look at how many appraisers got additional work after a value dispute was done. Because if an appraiser has a value dispute on them and they get no more work after the value dispute, then something is going on. Do you see what I'm talking about,
just
Kevin?
Going down the rabbit hole.
Well, dude, you can get down deep into this because as an appraiser, that's what we do. And as I get down even deeper and deeper, I can sit there and say, now, wait a second, give me the ratios of how many people get repeat work after one or two different value disputes. And if the answer is 0% get repeat work after it, then there's pressure. Then that means that the other ones that are coming in, they're anchored, but they're improperly anchored, and therefore the data set is incorrect, and therefore you can't come out and say that PIWs trade on the fact that 99% come in all the time, so we can just issue an appraisal waiver. You get down deep into it, and you realize you got some muck down in there that's nasty, and you don't mean to be doing appraisal waivers.
Need to get out of the sewer.
Get out of the sewer, get out of the waiver business, and have the appraisal done. That was the one thing that I pushed nonstop in that room for 2 days. Order the appraisal. Do not have the waiver done. Order the appraisal. Do not have the waiver done. I think to look at the anchoring process is a good idea, but you got to filter through that data first, find out if that data is accurate, and then if it is accurate, create an index off of it and say, okay, if it is true that appraisers do anchor to sales price in transactions from $100,000 to $200,000 98% of the time, then that shows a level duress inside of that marketplace, and that puts us right in Bengal Stadium with not enough hot dogs. That's what it's all about. That's how you read in to this data. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. I've gotten some wonderful emails this last week from some listeners who've made some very valid points. Listen to what this listener has to say here. For instance, Phil, if you go onto a highway and the speed limit is 65 miles per hour, if you did a study of traffic, I'm sure that most people travel the highway within the same similar speed range. One might ask, since 95% of the people travel within 10 miles per hour of the limit, why do we need the police in the first place? So if 95% of the people out there travel within, say, 55 to 70 miles an hour, why do you need to have the police? The answer is pretty obvious. It works that way in real estate as well. If you came out today and said, you know what, guys, the majority of people out there, they go 65, they go 60, they go 70, a majority of them do. So we're not going to put any cops out anymore. There's no more people out there checking speed. What happens to every single freeway in the country? It turns into the Autobahn. People are going out of control, except in Germany, you got to know how to drive to drive on the Autobahn. In America, we just got belt down the road. The appraisal profession is a natural check and balance. It's a natural deterrent for a market to get out of control. And to look at the natural deterrent, which is our profession, and to say we don't need it because a great majority of the people go 65 miles per hour, so we don't need to have that patrol person out there, then guess what? It's going to go absolutely out of control. And the one thing that the 21st century has shown us, well, actually, at the end of the 20th century, too, the one thing it's shown us is we don't have a problem blowing up bubbles in this country. We don't have a problem with .com bubbles. We don't have a problem with real estate bubbles. We don't have a problem with corporate debt bubbles. We don't have a problem with sovereign debt bubbles. We don't have a problem with repo rates at nighttime going up to 10% and the Fed pumping trillions of dollars into the repo market. We don't have a problem with bubbles. And maybe the reason we don't have a problem with bubbles is because we don't have enough real estate appraisers out there as a natural deterrent to create the bubble from taking place to begin with. It is just unbelievable. Some of this data that is out there today, look, it's a picture. The data presents a picture, but there's also the negative. There's the yin and the yang, and the yang part of the data really does show you the most accurate picture in some cases. Remember, there's duress on both sides. There's duress when you're getting foreclosed on, duress when you're getting into a divorce, duress when somebody dies. You're selling under duress. But at the same time, there's also duress in the marketplace if you don't have enough inventory. And maybe, just maybe, some of these anchoring situations is showing that level of market duress. That's my opinion on it.
You heard it here first, folks. The real estate appraiser, the police officer of the real estate.
Not even the police officer, just doing what you do, having that neutral position. It's like what Ernie said, you know, Phil, we're not about consumer protection. The neutral position of our business satisfies consumer protection. The neutral position of our business acts as a natural check and balance, a natural deterrent to an out-of-control market. Natural deterrency is what this business is all about. Yes, Kevin?
What is the phrase I like the most?
Yes.
Third party.
Third party.
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
Disinterested.
Disinterested. Neutral. We are the counterbalance to it. The natural deterrent. It's like voice of appraisal. It's like this podcast. We are the natural deterrent to any BS that comes out of the sausage world.
No sausage.
No sausage. I mean, you heard the sausage out there prior to 2014. It was like every single week. Oh, we're going to do this, and this is going to be the best way here, and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, VOA comes on in. No, we are a natural deterrent to any appraisal management company bullshit or anything else that comes down the line. We're a natural deterrent to any article that comes out saying you don't need the appraisal. When I was in Washington, I constantly worked that room to say, look, you know what? Don't waive us. You have to order the appraisal. There cannot be appraisal waivers. They heard it all day long. As a matter of fact, Kevin, is this 8 hours into this? This is 8 hours that very first day. And what ended up happening is Doug Duncan from Fannie Mae, he's the chief economist of Fannie Mae, he was on stage along with Frank, who's with CoreLogic. He finally brought up negative interest rates. Doug Duncan from Fannie Mae brought up negative interest rates. And Frank from CoreLogic, and I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to butcher it because I won't say it right. He was talking about rental property and how people were out there buying property for more of a rental income purpose than just for a home ownership purpose. And that got me all excited. But listen to what I had to say and listen to what we have to say about the appraisal waivers. Go ahead, Kevin.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for allowing us to come on in, two working appraisers. And to be honest with you, we've been watching you guys on YouTube for like 5 years now. So, and I have a podcast, and I jip you guys all the time, and it's terrific content. We really appreciate it.
Oh, how do you appraise us?
Mr. Duncan, you are on fire. Okay, because from Fannie Mae, you have brought up two awesome points. Number one, I'm going to extinguish him, right? Yeah, exactly. Number one, you brought up negative interest rates, and that is something that all of the real estate appraisers are concentrating on. It's in Europe, it's in Japan, it's in Germany. It's driving our 10-year Treasury down. It's driving mortgage rates down. You know, Alan Greenspan recently came out and said that there's no zero barrier when it comes to interest rates. Real estate appraisers are looking at that seriously, and that is a big thing that's going to affect us, I think, in the next 12 months. You're on fire with that. Secondly, you're on fire with what Miss Molly said there. Her comp is not your comp.
Here it is.
So in other words, when someone purchases a home, don't waive the appraisal. They could be paying too much, therefore it skews the entire data set.
Yes.
So remember, always have that appraisal done. It's very
I've been hearing that all day.
It's very important. Also, Frank, you're on fire because you just explained me as a single-family investor in Cincinnati, Ohio. And as rents get higher and higher, and Miss Molly, you're looking for rental data, as rents get higher and higher, it's not going to be about the sales comparison anymore. It's going to be about the rental income. People are going to buy homes because of the rents that's generated.
No yield.
Three approaches to value: sales comparison, cost, and income. And the income may be the most predominant way to value property in the future, okay? That's all I got to say. Thank you very much for allowing us to come in.
There you go. So as you can see, we hammered that nonstop. You cannot have the waiver done. That and the fact that a great majority of people in the next, I'd say, 5 years, if interest rates do not go up, are going to basically pay a ton of money for rental property for single-family homes because there's going to be a better yield on that side of the world than it is anyplace else. You're not going to get a yield anyplace else except for real estate. And you've got these massive, massive demographic shifts taking place where you've got all these young people, including my kids, that are going to need to have houses. And if they can't buy a house, they're going to rent them, and people are going to go in there and buy for rental reasons. So I don't know. This whole anchoring thing, I think there's a different way to look at it. But first and foremost, we have to see where the data is coming from. I think, if anything, Kevin, because I know a lot of modernization is taking place, and I know that the 1004 form is going the way of the dodo bird. It's going to go away. And if the GSEs do it right, they're probably going to have some online cloud-based sort of application or an appraiser who's doing an appraisal. They will log on to the cloud and enter that information in. There probably won't be that 1004 where you have to run the MISMO and the XML and all this stuff. It'll probably just be directly put in to Fannie Mae and to Freddie Mac. And I'll tell you something, if that's the way it goes, then that first submission will be everything. I think in the future that appraisals should be directly submitted to the GSE. It doesn't have to go through the third party. If you want to order it through the third party, fine. I would perhaps recommend ordering it through a portal, a low-cost portal, so that way we can modernize the regulatory side, modernize that. Order it through a low-cost portal, cut costs through consumers straight across the board. That way there's a benefit to consumers, and then have those appraisals directly given to the GSEs on first submission, so that way the GSE understands what the first submission value is and go from that. That, I think, would be a better scenario than the messed up situation that we have now where you got too many fingers on that appraisal by the time it gets to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac that are in conservatorship that you and I as taxpayers back up. And if we look at that data, we may not see 99% anchoring. There's one other thing I'm thinking about too, Kevin, because now you're getting me into this deep thought. I know we're going a little long, but you got me onto it. On the 1004 form, we are required to review the entire contract. The one thing that I would like to see at Fannie and Freddie, when they come out with that new online process, what I would like to see is a box on there. And a box that you check that says, did you analyze the contract? Are there any sales concessions? And were there multiple offers? Boom! Have a multiple offers box on there. So here you go, Kevin. What you do is you take your data and you look at sales price anchoring. And you say, okay, now 99% of sales price anchoring occurred when this box was checked, when there was multiple offers on it. So the multiple offer contracts came in at 99% of the time. That will give you a level then of duress, if you have it, on the supply side. And there's certain price points throughout the country. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. I mean, this stuff is not oh, wow, that's just amazing. It's just a real estate market acting as it needs to act. Now, I don't have a problem with 99% of the appraisals coming in at contract price if the market conditions justify that. But the data has got to be accurate. The data has got to be pure. And I think probably a direct delivery to the GSEs would be a better scenario than having it go through so many different middlemen and things like that. I've heard that the waivers are on their way out. I think it's a great thing. I think the more and more we get out there and we say you don't need appraisal waivers, you need to have appraisers done. Folks, it's all about image. We have to increase our image. We have to increase our image of professionalism. We have to increase our image and our footprint out there in consumer advocacy situations. We have to increase our image when it comes to the way that people look at us and the value add that we are to transactions. This is what Find My Appraiser is all about. We have had a couple of AMCs. People have asked me which ones. I don't want to say which ones because, first of all, I don't have their permission. And secondly, there is a confidentiality issue there, folks. So I don't want to mess around with that. But we have had a couple AMCs want to use the FMA, the FindMyAppraiser.com appraisers, to do their high-end stuff. So a lot of the, quote, high-end private client customers are refinancing all their debt right now. They don't want to send out any appraiser. They want to send out a very professional, knowledgeable appraiser in that area, and they're going to FindMyAppraiser.com to get those appraisers, to make those orders through the system. So it's working. This is not just some direct, it's an interactive, nationwide marketing campaign for real estate appraisers and for the appraisers that join on as representatives. That's what it is. It shows the best of the best. It gets out there and says, these are the appraisers that want to market themselves not only to banks, but to a greater client base. It's our got milk moment. It's our beef. It's what's for dinner moment. And that's what Find My Appraiser is all about, to be able to go out there and to show movers and shakers and policymakers that when you get this data in, this data is not indicating that you should not use appraisers. This data indicates that you must continue to use appraisers. You must continue to drive the data, to make sure it's more and more pure as time goes on. It will give you a better and more accurate picture of economic conditions. What are the economic conditions in your marketing area? Is it like Dallas, where people are worried about appraisals, where there's a slow market? Is it that layer cake meltdown that Jonathan Miller was talking about? Or is it the Bengals game? Are the Steelers kicking your ass? There's not enough hot dogs. Mike Brown is crying. So are most of the people in Cincinnati. And we're all going, Mayday, Mayday. What's your market like? Is there duress because no one is buying? Or is there a duress because there's not enough to sell? It's all a matter of how you look at the data. And that comes from imaging. And if it's done correctly, through proper messaging and marketing to those people that need to hear it, we will set ourselves up in our profession for the next 20 years. And we will make sure that we have a bright and profitable future. So, Kevin, that's all I got for today. That's it. We're going to have another show on Wednesday. That's with John Russell. He's going to join us with the American Society of Appraisers. If you're thinking about joining FindMyAppraiser.com, please do so. Go to www.findmyappraiser.com. Email us at info@findmyappraiser.com. Talk to Lori. She'll explain a little bit more about what we're doing behind the scenes. If you are interested in becoming a select appraiser speaker, an appraiser that will speak for the profession in a positive way, in a positive light, and also to advocate for the profession, please let us know at info@voiceofappraisal.com. We have an appraisal advocacy tab now with some speakers on there. We're going to add some more speakers as time goes on. We need to have boots on the ground appraisers out there speaking for us, and they need to be trusted. We need to trust them to make sure that they will deliver our message. And the appraisers that are on there today are trusted, and we're going to be adding more and more trusted speakers as time goes on. And please, if you have it in your heart, please donate to the Real Estate Appraisers Cancer Support Fund. Go to www.voiceofappraisal.com, www.voiceofappraisal.com. Donate to the Real Estate Appraisers Cancer Support Fund. And again, a very special thank you to all of the American veterans, American appraisers out there for your service on this Veterans Day. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our show for this week. And as always, I would like to thank you for listening as we journey through the mysteries and complexities that are, in fact, the real estate appraisal business. I would like to thank my producer, Kevin Kinney, for being here for his thoughtful insight and knowledge. God willing, we're going back here very soon, continuing to report from the front lines of the real estate market. In the meantime, you kiss your spouse, you hug your children, enjoy your day, be safe in the field. You've been listening to Phil Crawford on Voice of Appraisal. We'll talk very soon.